Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Midley and this is Made with Books, and today I'm going to talk about the books that I read for the TBR ClearOut Readathon. There was one by Katie from Books and Things. Before going into that, I did read more books in the month of May, but they were not for the readathon, so I'm just going to talk about those in different videos. And then two things that I wanted to say. I've already filmed and uploaded the TBR for the month of May, and there's so many readathons going on in May, and one that I forgot is Books for the Brave, and that is one by Leanne from Literary Diversions, Emma from Drinking by My Shelf, and Victoria from What Victoria Read. And I will link down below to their announcement videos. I'm not going to directly participate in the readathon, but I do want to donate. So the reason they are hosting this readathon is they want to collect donations for the NHS in the UK, the healthcare system, and one of my sisters and my best friend live in the UK, in England in particular, and yeah, it's just worrying, and so I will definitely make a donation even if I'm not gonna directly read books for that particular readathon. And then another thing, if you're looking for something to divert yourself or entertain yourself with, I found that the Globe Theatre that is in London has on their channel, they upload plays right now, Shakespeare's plays, in full length, so you can watch them. It's always up for I think 1 or 2 weeks each play. So they had Romeo and Juliet, but I think they're closed, and Daniel and I kind of missed it. But they're gonna have Macbeth and Two Noble Kinsmen up next, I think. So if that's something that interests you, I will link down below to the channel. And they're also asking for donations if you can help them out financially as well. So yeah, I just wanted to mention those two things in the beginning. So I did finish 3 books for the readathon, but 2 of these were big chunksters, so I'm quite happy with the result. And the first one that I finished was Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. Now I started reading this in January for the Cromwellathon. There was one by Jason from All Blues Chapter and Verse. And I really enjoyed it, but I put the book down when I started reading the BookTube Prize books. And I'm very happy I picked it back up again, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. If you don't know what it's about, roughly, it's the story of Thomas Cromwell, who sort of came from rather humble beginnings and works his way up, first working for the Cardinal Wolsey until he becomes one of the most trusted advisors of King Henry VIII, if not the most trusted advisor, that is. This particular, the first book in the trilogy, is set at the time that King Henry VIII is trying to divorce or annul the marriage to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, in order to marry Anne Boleyn. And also, obviously, in alliance with that, the split from the Catholic Church. And I've seen a lot of really great videos already during Cromwellathon, and some that I only watched now that talked about the later chapters once I finished them. And I will link some of those down below. For example, Alba from Seriella, she not only read this one, but she read biography of Thomas Cromwell, so she has a lot more insight, because Thomas Cromwell comes off really well in these novels, and I think because she read the biography, she sort of has a more complex view of him. So I really enjoyed hearing her thoughts. And obviously Jason had some great videos and insights, and he talked about, which I absolutely agree with, how Mantel puts a lot of trust in her readers, and she sort of just throws you into the story, and as Jason said, expects you to either swim or sink, and you swim because she's just that good. So I really like that idea as well. And then Jenny Johnson did a really nice video where she read one passage where it shows Cromwell basically having 2 conversations at once. And Tilly from Tilly's Shelf has also done, I think it was Cromwell Midnight Meanderings or something along those lines. And those were really good as well. She used some sort of book club, I guess, discussion questions and answered those, and that was really good as well. So those are some of the ones that come to mind, so I will link those down below if you want to hear more about Wolf Hall. And just want to add some, I guess, small observations that I made that I hope I didn't see on other channels. If so, I'm sorry if I'm repeating stuff. One thing that I thought was interesting is that Cromwell has a lot of sort of the same attractions to women that King Henry VIII does. So he is attracted to Anne Boleyn to a certain extent, and he definitely has a flirtation going on with her sister Mary Boleyn. It almost looks at one point like she's trying to get him to marry her, which he does not, obviously. And then he also seems to really care for Jane Seymour, and as we, I guess, know from history, is that the king is going to end up with her, which I assume is going to happen in the second book. And I'm just wondering if that was a way, Mantel's way of sort of hinting at what is historically going to happen, because we see him interested in her, so that means the king is going to be interested in her. But I just thought that was like sort of an interesting connection between the two of them. And then he seems to have a rather difficult relationship with his son. I mean, he trusts sort of important tasks, not really to him, but rather to the other boys that he's raised. So Waif Sadler, who has grown up in his household, or his nephew Richard, he seems to trust them a lot more with sort of like complex things. And his son seems to be like a bit, Gregory seems a bit more light-headed, if that's the right way to put it. But at the same time, he sort of, it says he spoiled him as a child, and he definitely wants him to grow up better than he did, because he had a really bad relationship with his father beating him up. I mean, that's one of the, I think that's the first image we get in the novel. And so I thought it was interesting that although he treated his son a lot nicer, they still seem to have a difficult relationship, even though on a very different level than he and his father did. And then another thing that I noticed is that Mantel seems to love using lists throughout the novels. And I mean, she writes fantastically, like amazingly, but if there would be like one minor thing where I would maybe critique the book a bit, is the usage of lists, because for me sometimes those were a bit overdone. I'm not sure if she was using them to sort of just create atmosphere, or if she was trying to show how Cromwell has so many balls in the air and is managing all these different things, and that's why she lists so many different things. One example is when they're getting ready for Anne's coronation, so it's toward the end of the book, and it says, "And looking down on them, the other Londoners, those monsters who live in the air, the city's uncounted population of stone men and women and beasts, and things that are neither human nor beasts, fanged rabbits and flying hares, four-legged birds and pinioned snakes, imps with bulging eyes and duck's-bill, men who are wreathed in leaves or have the heads of goats or rams, creatures with knotted coils and leather wings, with hairy ears and cloven feet, horned and roaring, feathered and scaled, some laughing, some singing, some pulling back their lips to show their teeth, lions and friars, donkeys and geese, devils with children crammed into their maws, all chewed up except for their helpless paddling feet, limestone Aladdin, metalled or marbled, shrieking and sniggering above the populace, hooting and gurning and dry heaving from buttresses, walls and roofs." I mean, that's very good writing, we don't have to argue about that, but at the same time, she used that quite often, didn't always feel like necessary to the story for me. So I would be curious, for those who have read Wolfhall, what you thought about those instances. And then the last thing, as I said, how Jason says that she sort of throws you in and expects you to either know the history or just pick it up. And she does that very well. Like, she gives you historical facts, but she doesn't overburden you with them, which I think is also something that Mark from Wordsworth Everywhere said to me in a message when we talked a while ago. He mentioned that to me. And an instance where I had to think of this is toward the end of the novel. Cromwell has the painter Hans Holbein do a painting of him, and when he looks at it, he's astonished to, see himself, how others see him. And there's this very crucial thing where he says, somebody told him he looks like a murderer, and I guess that person was right. And while he was looking at himself so astonished at this portrait of him, I realized it's because he probably never had a mirror. And then I looked it up, and obviously mirrors at that time were extremely rare and super expensive. So the only way I guess he saw himself was if he looked into the water or something. And I mean, if you look into like water to see your image, you're only gonna get a little piece and you're not gonna see yourself properly. So to get this portrait was a way of himself seeing himself like others see him for the first time. And I thought that was sort of like interesting, because Mantel doesn't go in and says, oh, you know, mirrors weren't widely available at the time, but you get that just through the story, and it's just it's not even the most important part in that bit, of course. It's more about like the psychological aspects as well, but I just thought it interesting how she puts these little historical facts in there that you can, you know, find. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I will definitely continue with the series, even though not right away. But I definitely do want to pick the other books up in the series as well. So thank you so much to Jason for hosting Cromwellathon. And then next up I finished a French classic, and that was Le Fleur de Mal, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, by Charles Baudelaire, which I read in the German translation, and the English title would be Flowers of Evil. This is a poetry collection. The German one was translated by Therese Robinson. And if you are looking into getting into sort of classical poetry, I would say that this is not a bad starting point by any means. Poetry was very accessible and readable, and I did enjoy it, but I would say with regards to the themes and the way that Baudelaire writes about certain things, just be wary when you go into that. So the way he writes about women, and particularly women of color, is troubling to say the least. It's really sexist at times. It's, I would say, racist at times, or if not racist, at least like very exoticizing. Let me give you one poem example. So I have this on the laptop. So I looked up an English translation of the poem Sed non Satiata. This particular translation is by Roy Campbell. And it's strange goddess, brown as evening to the side, whose scent is half of musk, half of Havana, work of some Obi, forced of the savannah, ebony witch and daughter of the night, by far preferred to troth or drugs or sleep. Love vaunts the wet elixir of your mouth. My caravan of longing seeks in drouth your eyes, the wells at which my care drinks deep. Through those black eyes by which your soul respires, pitiless demon, pour less scorching fires. I am no Styx 9 times with flames to wet, nor can I turn myself to Proserpine to break your spell, Megara libertine, within the dark inferno of your bed. So, you know, just these comparisons of dark-skinned women to witches, and there's also comparisons in other poems to snakes and stuff like that. So that was troubling. So if that is something that is going to turn you off, then I think you've been warned. And the thing is, he actually had a lover called Jean Duval, who was dark-skinned. She came from Haiti. And so, yeah, it's just the way he wrote about her, because I think those poems are dedicated to her or were about her, it hasn't aged very well. And I do think about rereading actually the short story Black Venus by Angela Carter, which is about Jean Duval. So I might reread that soon after having read these poems now. Some other things that I found interesting was the sort of some poems towards the end were dealing with religion, or rather him sort of struggling with religion and seeing some things very, very critical. So that was interesting. And yeah, if you're looking for something to cheer you up at the moment, probably don't pick up this collection right now, because a lot of these poems were really bleak, sort of talking about death and just being old and dying and a bit decrepit. So keep that in mind. But overall, I'm very happy that I read this classic. Now, a book that is much more suited to cheer you up, and the next one that I read, is The World of Jeeves by P.J. Wodehouse. So I finished this one as well. This is the second chunkster on the list, obviously. And by the way, I already did donate for Wolf Hall to Alan Morton's Chunksters for Charity challenge, where he's collecting money. So he's reading chunksters throughout the year, and for every chunkster he reads, he donates £10 to Book Aid. But anybody can participate. So if you're reading chunksters and you have some money to spare, consider donating to Alan's charity call. I think it's a great idea. I still have to donate for this one, but I definitely will. This is about the world of Jeeves and Woosters. I mean, it's called the world of Jeeves, but it's about the both of them. Technically, I did finish this in May. I finished this on the 1st of May when I read the last story, but I'm still counting it for the TBR ClearOut Readathon, obviously. This one contains all of the short stories about Jeeves and Wooster, and it contains the short story collections The Inimitable Jeeves, Carry On Jeeves, and Very Good Jeeves, and then 2 stories that I guess are standalone stories that were, I guess, published in magazines. And this is absolutely delightful. If you don't know what these are about, basically you have Bertie Wooster, who is sort of the this rich gentleman, and either himself or some of his friends are always getting in trouble, and the person to bail them out every time without fault is Jeeves, his sort of gentleman servant. It's a bit formulaic in that sense, because you usually have Bertie doing something that annoys Jeeves, like, I don't know, wearing very flamboyant socks or whatever, and then Bertie getting into trouble, or one of his friends getting into trouble, Jeeves bailing him out, and then in the end he gives up the stuff that annoys Jeeves. But they are just so witty and funny, it just doesn't matter. I will say, if you read all of them really close back to back, it can get a bit too much, but otherwise these are just delightful. The sense of humor is hilarious. I wrote down 2 quotes that I really liked towards the end of the collection, just to give you an idea. The first one mentions one of his aunts, and it's actually the only aunt that Bertie has a very good relationship with, which makes this even funnier, I guess. At this point, Aunt Dahlia, a little brusquely it seemed to me, said that she would rather wait for the story of my life till she could get it in book form. So just a very polite way to shut somebody up. I thought that was hilarious. And another way to shut somebody up, which I will probably use in the future, is write to me about it, using one side of the paper only. So just to give you an idea of the hilarity that is PJ Wodehouse. So I definitely want to read more about Jeeves and Wooster. This was my first foray into that world, and yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I did pick up another one towards the end of the month, and that was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and I am about 50 pages into the novel. I had already read the first 80 pages, so I already know what is happening at this point. So I will just continue reading this one in May. I am enjoying it. Frankenstein is obnoxious. I don't really like him as a character, but I am enjoying the novel. So yeah, that's all I have about these books. Thank you so much to Katie, who hosted this readathon. I am so happy that I got through some of the books that I planned to read. The other ones I guess I'm just gonna spread out over the next couple of months and will finish eventually. So yeah, if you have read any of these books, let me know what you thought about them. Or if you've participated in the readathon, what did you read? And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye guys!